The Holy Gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ, according to Matthew. Glory to you, Lord Christ. The Pharisees went and plotted to entrap Jesus in what he said. So they sent their disciples to him, along with the Herodians, saying, "Teacher, we know that you are sincere, and teach the way of God in accordance with truth, and show deference to no one, for you do not regard people with partiality. Tell us then, what do you think? Is it lawful to pay taxes to the emperor or not?" But Jesus, aware of their malice, said, "Why are you putting me to the test, you hypocrites? Show me the coin used for the tax." And they brought him a denarius. Then he said to them, "Whose head is this, and whose title?" They answered, "The emperor's." Then he said to them, "Give therefore to the emperor the things that are the emperor's, and to God the things that are God's." When they heard this, they were amazed, and they left him and went away. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Christ. When have you been so amazed by something that it left you speechless and thinking about your next step? Here's a story. Two political parties, diametrically opposed to each other. These two political parties can't agree on anything. They don't want to work together. Some of them claim that they're religious, but seem to care more about their political government, playing games, having control. Two political parties approached Jesus and set a trap. When I started that story, is that where you thought I was going with that? And if you had that thought, it might be interesting to examine how things don't change much. So these two opposing parties, the Pharisees and the Herodians, wouldn't talk to each other on a normal day, but they are not pleased with Jesus. Together they agree, this man must go. This man, Jesus, speaks against the empire. He says negative things about the political rulers, and they've had enough, and they want it to stop. These religious leaders have created ties with their Roman government. These religious leaders have let some boundaries slide so that they may be comfortable. These religious leaders agree that Jesus must go. Because Jesus isn't supporting Rome, Jesus comes in and he asks questions. He says statements about what God might want in the world. And these religious leaders see that it's going to cause some trouble for them. So the Pharisees get together and they make a plan. And they're like, hey, even the Herodians don't like this guy. So maybe we will get together with them. So they go and approach Jesus, who is teaching in the temple. It's important to know that that's an important note, that he is in the temple. And they probably think, we have him now. We have him now. Because after they ask their question, if he says, well, you should pay taxes to the government, they will declare him as a sham to all of those who follow him. And if he says not to pay taxes, then they really, really have him, because that's punishable under Roman law. But Jesus again turns the tables. Show me this coin, Jesus says, and they pull it out. Now, oh my gosh, they pull out a coin. They are in the temple. You don't understand. They pull it out. They are in the temple. Remember how I told you that was important? This coin that they pull out of their pocket has the head of the emperor, Tiberius, and an inscription that says, Son of the Divine. They pull out an idol, both an image and confession of divinity in the temple. They have just violated at least one of the 10 commandments. So Jesus, in front of everyone, shows how these leaders who claim to be faithful to God are complicit in Roman rule. Those religious leaders are amazed and speechless, probably a little embarrassed and a little angry, and they leave. And while they walk away today, they are not done plotting. We know how the story ends. But Jesus has some important things to say to his disciples and to us. We are not called to run away. We're not called to go live in the hills alone, secluded. We're not called to build monasteries. We're not called to seclude ourselves. We are called to function in the societies where we live. In doing that, we must also keep our loyalties clear in our hearts and in our declarations, how we engage with our religious communities and our secular leadership. Jesus calls us to forever, all the time, declare our loyalty to God and be proclaimers of the good news. So we do what we must in our society. We pay our taxes, but we belong to God. We are to declare that humanity belongs to God. All of creation belongs to God. Our work, our call is to protect all people and all of creation. And my friends, this is a hard tension. This is a hard tension that is currently being battled about around us. It is a tension between the what we can see, what is here now, and that promise that God has for us, that good news, that love that is in our heart, our striving to be the people that God is calling us to be. It's a hard tension. But when we live in that tension and when we keep our focus on God's love, we can make the biggest impact in the lives of the people around us. It is that tension, this living in but not being of the world, that brings us to vote in elections, to write letters to our governmental representatives after they're elected, and engage in public theology. What are we seeing going on in the world, and what does God have to say about it? We understand that people are not deities, even if Tiberius claims to be one, and if anybody else comes along to try to be that deity, that God, that idol, we must speak out and be part of the proclamation of the good news. It is in that tension, yes, that we have people that we hire to help us govern, to help us keep organized in our secular lives. But it is our call as Christians to help keep their focus on helping people, doing the things that are best for all of creation. It's a hard tension. And sometimes the tension and the disagreements leave us speechless. But sometimes it's the awe of what God is doing in the world, the way that we see God's love happen, the ways that we're brought up short, that we can stop and we can say, what are my priorities? Where are my loyalties? In this situation, what is God calling me to do? In this situation, what is the best thing for all of creation, all of humanity? It is a tough time to consider these things, to consider how we will take one step at a time to move forward. It is difficult sometimes to know how to proclaim good news when people around us are shouting hate or anger. But it is this tension in which we are called to live. It is in this tension that we continue to point to God and to point to that good news. It's nice that we're in the gospel according to Matthew, because at the end, Jesus says, just to highlight this point a little more, go, proclaim the gospel to all nations. To all nations. Jesus understands that there is tension. Jesus understands that it's easy to slip and be complicit, to forget that we are carrying around, like the Pharisees and the Herodians did, some mark of idolatry. But Jesus also gives us that chance every day to continue, to come back to God, to go and proclaim the gospel to all nations, to be God's grace, mercy, and justice. So it's time. Let's go do that.